for all the world to see. A statue of a fool made of stone.
Welcome to this edition of the Volun Out Podcast. I'm your host, Jordan, here with my co-host for the night, Andrew, my resident Gator Guru. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good tonight. Looking forward to the game this weekend.
I want to be, but at the same time, I'm like, I know how this could go. So, anywho, and you and I have known each other for a hot minute. We've talked about doing this before. I'm glad I got you tonight. This is going to be a fun one.
Yeah, me too, man.
Going to be a good one. We kick off Saturday night, 7 o'clock in Neyland Stadium, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to make some SEC picks, and we're just going to talk some ball, man. You ready to get into it?
Ready as I'll ever be.
Yes, sir. Well, not that I really want to, but we're going to go through a series history a little bit. Florida, y'all own us. You ain't going to lie. Y'all own us. 21 overall. The Vols have won just one game out of the last 7, and only 2 in the series since 2005. That includes, but both of those include the road egg we laid last year in Gainesville, where y'all beat us 29-16. Man, I don't know. I have a cautious optimism with this one, but again, it's cautious for a reason. I know how this could go. Like, it's one of those deals. There's been several years we've had the better team on paper, and y'all just find a way to do it, man.
Yeah, you're right. I think I've explained the Florida-Tennessee rivalry for the last 10, 15 years like this, which is it feels like 2 homeless men fighting for a half-eaten McGriddle. So, one of us is going to get that McGriddle, but do you really win? You picked it up out of the trash, and you got to eat it. But at the end of the day, you're eating half-eaten McGriddle out of the trash. So, I mean, you and I were at it that first year that they checkerboarded the stands, Muschamp year 2014. It was like neither team could score. Neither team looked like they knew what they were doing. Florida did what Florida does, brings in the backup quarterback, and he doesn't do much, but he does enough to win the game. Muschamp chirps at the fans, and it was one of those games. So it's been a lot of that. And then you talked about last year's game. I point to that game. Billy Napier's era has not been great, and by any means, it's not been good. It's been quite bad. But the first half of that game was the best version of Napier football that I've seen. So, and I say the first half because, and I think Mertz had a cut on his hand, couldn't really throw the ball in the second half. But that first half, that was just the best team football, especially offense, that I've seen under Napier. And it was without Anthony Richardson at quarterback. So the last time we played in Neyland, I feel like Richardson played his best game as a Gator. But last year, that first half was so much fun to watch because it just felt like everything was working the way it should. That was a great Tennessee defense last year, and it's even better this year. But I point to that first half like that was a big eye-opening half for us. As this could be what Napier football looks like, but unfortunately, the majority of the games since then and before then, that's not what we saw. So we were on it looked like on a collision course to an 0 for season, maybe playing Florida State for the right to go get 2 wins at the end of the year. And things shifted a little bit. We know Miami's really good. We know Texas A&M's really good now. And then we beat 3 teams that we should beat, although UCF last week was favored. So things feel a little different, but I think, at the end of the day, the talent advantage on paper is too much in favor of Tennessee, especially on defense.
Dude, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't even want to sound like a homer, but our defense is stingy. You lose and you give up 13 points. You lose. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Which that makes you think, okay, well, the offense sucks. The offense don't suck. That was a whole different thing. I don't know. We've talked about it before. Hype on the road, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. I'm not going into that. I'm not going into that right now. We just, there's some issues there on the road that I think there's only a certain way things can get fixed. And it's not fire and hype. It's not. I think
No,
he just needs
absolutely
to learn
not.
to pitch him over his shoulder and run with it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I think that loss. My feelings about the game this week wouldn't have changed in either if that was a close win at the end or the loss it was. My feelings on the game have changed just because I saw a Florida team go out there that had given up a ton of rushing yards all season, one of the top rushing offenses in the country, and held them to 100-something yards. So
Sure.
it was nice to see that. I saw a little fire from Billy Napier last week. So it gives me a little more excitement going into this week. I think most Florida fans would agree.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, you've got your own. You're like me. You have your own reasons for excitement because of what you've seen out of your team. Not, well, they lost. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to make sure it's clear that I think most reasonable Florida fans don't feel confident just because of that loss. They feel a little more confident maybe because of how our team seems to be playing in the last few games.
Sure. Yeah, you got. I mean, I haven't been able to catch all of your games the last couple of weeks. Last week, y'all played at the same time pretty much that we did, so I didn't get a chance to watch much of it. But, you know, you guys are playing better, and that's always a good thing. This is just one of those games. I don't know. It's one of those games where
It's got a weird feel to it. I'm trying to maybe point to a year. Would maybe 2012 be a year that we would, because you remember there was a lot of hype around that. It was a night game in Neyland. But what happened in that one was Florida ended up winning, I think, and Tennessee just looked awful. I think that might have been Dooley's last year or something. For some reason, that year's coming out to me.
That might have been the last year you and I watched one of these games together, honestly. And it's wild to say that because you and no, Butch, you and I went to the game together in Knoxville whenever it was Butch's first year.
Yeah, that was 2014.
But what I would say that's an accurate comparison. I mean, you know, I hope it's a different outcome, but
and I would say I think my feelings on this game are I think we're going to see a focused Tennessee team, one that's going to be able to move on from that loss. I don't know necessarily that the team was looking ahead, because the better team was the team they were playing last week, to be honest. I don't think we would beat Arkansas, especially at their place. So, you know, I don't think they were looking ahead. I think that's one of those games that sneaks up on you. Team's a little better than maybe you thought. They've got the fans showed up. They got loud. The defense played pretty well for them, and just kind of came out flat. And you're in a dogfight. And then it comes down to the end. You got a young quarterback who's never been in that situation, and it's a tough spot to be in. And some things weren't handled the best. So, you know, that's the game of football, but we're playing in an era now where there's 12 teams that make the playoffs, and I fully expect half those teams to have at least 2 losses this year.
Sure. No, I'm gonna agree with that. I'm gonna say this though. All week, last week, anybody that would listen, you know, in our group chat, I said this game scares me.
Yep.
It scares me just because they've got good quarterback play. It did, and that was one of my things. It has trap game written all over it.
And there was just a black cloud over high-ranked teams over the country, but especially the SEC. Obviously, this past week with massive upset, Vandy beating Alabama, with more Alabama fans in the stands than Vandy fans, you know, like usual. And then just dribbling down the list, A&M just absolutely destroying Missouri from the start. I mean, it was a weird weekend. It was a very weird weekend for SEC football.
This weekend had one of those 7 type vibes to it, you know, just like it was like, Abbey State beats Michigan, okay.
And then from then it just rolled down the hill, and I think we'll see so much changing in the top 5, top 10, and it's going to be a fun year. And I don't feel like there's a team that really stands out as head over heels best team in the country.
No, really, there's not. None. I'm not going to say Texas is. I'm not.
No, me neither.
Absolutely not. So I want to get into a couple of storylines for this game this week. Billy Napier, is the man on the hot seat, or does a win save that man's job?
I don't know. I felt maybe after the Texas A&M game he really was, and he claims he wasn't, but he might have been right. So I don't think he's on the hot seat this week, in that if he loses the game, I don't think it hurts his job. If he wins the game, I don't think it helps, if that makes sense. I think he's probably just about locked in for one more year regardless.
You look at two.
Yeah, I do too. I'm tired of coach turnover, although maybe I feel like he's not the guy for the job. I think You got to give them another year. Got to hope to keep Lagway there and build on that. We played a lot of young guys this past week on defense, and it really revitalized the defense and showed that we've got some talent there, some young talent. But he's outside. I just don't see where it felt like we were going to the Mississippi State game. We were like, as fans, we're like, if we lose that game, Napier might get fired before he gets on the plane.
Sure. That's the
not
worst
gonna
team in the
happen.
SEC.
Right. That's not going to happen in Neyland. What's the spread? Is it 10+ this weekend? I haven't even checked, but
So that was actually in my notes here. PI gives Tennessee basically, let's call it an 87% chance of winning.
okay.
And
so that's got to be a 10+ spread, I'd say.
Last week, actually, when the spread opened before the Arkansas game, it opened up before then. It was a 20.5 point spread. Tennessee was favored. Since Tennessee lost to Arkansas, it has dropped to 15.5.
And that makes sense. That feels a little high, but if we go in there, play competitively for a half, and then the depth and the talent starts to take over in the second half. We see Florida lose by 2 touchdowns. Yeah. Nobody's going to be upset about that. Nobody's going to be asking for Napier's job, especially if we look like we had a pulse.
Sure.
It felt like at times against Miami, Texas A&M is just like, what are you doing? Do you really want to be here? Is it what's going through your head? With this. So and I'll be the first to admit I'm still not a huge fan of this 2-quarterback system he's currently using. That is working. It's pretty set on 2 drives for Mertz, 1 drive for Lagway, rinse and repeat. So regardless of what happens in those drives, Mertz can come out, lead 2 touchdown drives, and then that third drive, Lagway's coming out either way. It worked against UCF. There were some times where it didn't, and you started to feel fans, getting grumblings one way or the other. Let's put DJ
apathy.
in. Let's put Mertz in. So, yeah. So I mean, it's working right now. I don't know how long it'll work. I'm glad that it is working right now because it does give Lagway a chance. We see it every week. We saw it last week. If you've seen the replay, there's a throw he made against UCF. Although Mertz had the better game on paper, he made a throw that only guys on Sunday make.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And he flashes that every now and then, and you're just like, this is a guy that needs to play more because he has, a talent level that's through the roof. Where we kind of know what Mertz is going to give us. He's more of a dink
he's
and
your
dunk.
consistency.
Yeah, right. He's consistent. He's going to find the open guy. He's gonna work it down the field, slow, methodical drives, and it's nice when it works. But when it doesn't, it puts our defense on the field a lot, and we start giving up a lot of points and a lot of 3 and outs. So DJ just brings that second element of a little bit of mobility, not as much, but as people think. But he's just such an exceptional athlete, and his throwing ability is through the roof. So we'll see if it keeps working. If it was to crash and burn, this would be the weekend where it would.
I'm going to say this. I feel like if things are going Tennessee's way, you're going to see a lot more DJ Lagway. If it's going the way you want it to go, Tennessee fans are going to get to know Graham Mertz a lot better than what they did last year. That's just the way it is.
That's really a perfect way to put it. Like, basically, you're saying that if James Pierce and the rest of that defensive line are eating Mertz alive all game, you got to put the guy in there that's a little more mobile to try to move the pocket and get away from those elite pass rushers. I mean, James Pierce is probably the number 1 pick in the draft if a quarterback doesn't go. He's the best player in the draft. He's the best player, best athlete in the country, period. So, and I've been fairly impressed with Florida's offensive line overall. Names I didn't know, but they've done pretty well. I wouldn't point to them as a big reason why we've lost any games.
Sure.
So we'll see how they hold up. This will be their biggest test this weekend, and in a hostile environment, and I know that loss is not gonna hamper the 100,000 plus Tennessee fans are going to be there. They're still going to be there, be loud, and it's going to be a very tough environment to play in.
The saving grace for Tennessee could be that this is a night game. You give the next time to get stirring, buddy. Play some Hank, and we're on. It's go time.
Yeah, the worst thing they could have done is drop this game at noon. I just you and I both, we just cringe anytime this game's on noon. It just feels like an injustice to the rivalry.
It does, and it just feels like it don't matter if it's at noon. I mean, that's not saying it don't. It matters to somebody, just not us. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that being said, let's talk about your schedule, man. Like it seems like every other year at least, you guys have a schedule like this. You guys only play 3 games outside of the state of Florida. That's got to be nice. I mean, because do you really have, especially when you guys are good? I'm not saying you're not, but whenever you're good, do you really have a true road game? You know what I mean? This would be one of those.
Yeah,
but,
right. But and you can point back to 08, our national championship year. It was a very similar schedule. We played Miami, who was very good that year. Played them in the Swamp. Played Florida State at Florida State. Played Tennessee at Tennessee. The Georgia game obviously was in Jacksonville. Georgia was the number 1 team in the country that year. So yeah, I don't know. I'd have to be inside the program a little more to really see what the benefit of that is. I think if you're playing a good team, it doesn't matter. If you got to drive 30 miles down the road to get pummeled by Georgia, it doesn't help that it's only a 30-mile drive. You're going to be going to a stadium that purposefully is half Georgia fans, half Florida fans, a true neutral site, even though it's closer for you. But you're playing a far superior opponent. So now this year, I will say it's completely different. You talk about one of the road games is against Texas. That's a big road game. That's a huge travel. And I think that might be our next game. So you look at the schedule, it's top 10 on the road, top 10 on the road, top 10 at a neutral site, and then top 10 on the road again. So we play Tennessee, Texas, and Ole Miss on the road. And
I'm going to correct you real quick, though. You play the real UT first.
Did I say UT?
Down.
I did. Right. No, I won't refer to Texas as UT just because of my SEC roots. But we got to go there and play. We got to go to Ole Miss and play. We got to Florida State, as bad as they look. That's a rival. We've got to end the season at their place.
Right.
And then we got our only home games are Kentucky and LSU left.
Right. Well, I guess what I was saying was when it's good, it's good. When it's bad, it's bad. And that's like, I mean,
I would
God
say
bless,
that,
dude. Those are your 3 away games, plus Texas at Ole Miss. Shit, dude, no. If you
and at
come
the
out
time,
of that,
preseason,
go ahead.
I said preseason, we had you had Florida State at number 10. Florida State was the number 10 team in the country, and we were going to be playing them on the road. So it looked like it was, and it still is
brutal.
A monster schedule. But it looked like it was going to be the hardest schedule that's ever made.
Yeah, dude. I know. I'd heard you talk about it. You're like, man, we're going to be lucky if we're 4-8. And
right. Like, I mean, legitimately, I hate it, but it's that tough. Especially when I know the nature of our team. We're not where we should be or where we have been from a talent perspective. So, that's going to play a part. But I think the road to 6 wins is there. I think 5 wins definitely saves Billy's job and gives him another year. But I think 6 wins is very possible but you got to beat Kentucky, got to beat LSU and Florida State. And if you don't beat one of those 3, you got to pull off a monster upset. And that's what this week would be. Starting this week, it'd be a monster upset if Florida beat Tennessee.
So you bring that up, and I'm just going to go ahead and ask you because it was my next talking point. Because clearly, this is depending on what color you're wearing this weekend. What does this mean? What does this game mean for the rest of your season? I know what it means for the rest of my season. What does it mean for the rest of your season?
Well, hey, that's a good question. That's a tough one because I want to say everything. I want to say everything if we win, because then there's a lot that is still in front of us. Then it's like, well, man, if we can go into Tennessee and win, maybe we can go into Texas and win. Maybe we can go into Ole Miss and win. All of a sudden, maybe we're looking at a much better season than anybody ever could imagine. Especially if we do it in a way. Let's say DJ Lagway that's the best case scenario. DJ Lagway just balls out, can't take him off the field. He leads Florida to victory, and then you roll with him the rest of the year. And then you go into next year with all this momentum and recruiting and everything, all the young talent we still have.
Sure,
that's best case scenario. So, but at the same time, a loss isn't. There was a time where a loss to Tennessee would derail Florida's season, right?
Right.
Because we were expected to win so many times. So I would say we're in a unique position where we can afford to take a loss here because we're playing a better team.
Well,
point blank in a tough environment.
one thing I want to say, and this to me, and this is one of my X factors that I was going to ask you about later on, but to me, pressure. All the pressure's on Tennessee to win this game. You guys, to everything you just said, y'all are coming in here with nothing to lose, not a damn thing. I mean, if y'all lose, we
just did what we were supposed to do.
Exactly. Tennessee loses though, and that's why I asked the question though. Tennessee loses our next 5 games, starting with you guys. We get, luckily, the next 4 are in Neyland. We get you guys, Alabama, Kentucky, Miss State, all 4 in Neyland Stadium. After that, though, we go to Georgia. So, to me, we used our mulligan last week. This game was never a mulligan game for us.
Yeah.
If you look at what the expectations were, for Tennessee, this game was a game we're supposed to win. And if you look at, going into preseason, you look at it. That game last week was a game we were supposed to win. But I will say this. I'm not your casual college football fan. I will watch every game every week. I said for a week straight after that Oklahoma game, that Arkansas game scares me. Even on here, my 2 co-hosts, I love them to death, but they're like, "Oh man, we're gonna go out there, we're gonna handle them." No, I said it. I'm like, it's a 13.5 point spread that has trap game written all over it. It's going to be close if Tennessee goes out there and wins. There's a reason we won twice since 2001, or since 95, 01, twice. 01 was the last time we won in Fayetteville.
Yeah,
there's a reason,
and that's what was the one team that in your national championship year, they were the team that really should have won that game, right? So
they should have.
There's definitely some superstition and some things like that in SEC football. And you were right. I agree with you. I said I think anybody that thinks Tennessee is going to go in there and roll is probably wrong. And it's not a discredit to Tennessee. It's a credit to Arkansas, and under their coach, that's what they've done for years now.
My co-host Billy, he would be on with us tonight, but I don't want to go into why he's not here, but just he's had some issues come up. He's not able to be with us tonight. He's the only reason we won that 98 game. I remember watching that game very vividly. I remember watching it, whatever. But he wasn't able to be with us tonight, but he's the reason we won that game. He turned that game.
Yeah. But to your point, like you said, you used your mulligan, but if Tennessee wants to legitimately have a chance to get into the 12-team playoff, you can't lose to Florida, first of all. So you're right. All the pressure's there.
No.
As soon as you lose to Florida, because it's going to be tough. You're going to have to beat Alabama and Georgia, plus those other possible trap games. Still got Vanderbilt, which is no pushover this year. So you got to beat Florida, and you got to beat Florida, and you got to split Alabama, Georgia at the worst if you want to get to the playoffs. Now that's not, I think this team is still destined for an easy 9-3 season, which is a great season with a young quarterback. He's coming back a lot, but you do still have a special defense right now that will not be there next year.
No.
Yeah, and so you really got to take advantage of that.
Yes, absolutely. This is one of those years though where 9-3 could get you into the playoffs, but it depends on who those 3 losses are to.
Yeah. If the right things happen and 2 of those 3 losses are to Georgia and Alabama. But I think if one of the losses are to Florida and we continue to go on and maybe win 6 games or 5, that might hurt. But, it really depends on what else goes on around the country. And like we both have said, is nobody's really stood out as an elite team. And I don't think anybody goes through the season undefeated. And if they do, they're probably going to be, liable to lose the first game in the playoffs.
Right. Well, okay, so Texas beat Michigan. Everybody, we talked about that in our group chat. Shout out to the boys, Don and Ryan. But, we talked about that in the group chat. Everybody was going to, anoint Texas. They did. They sure did for beating Michigan. But let's talk about this. Michigan lost a ton off that national championship team, man. What did anybody really expect? You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
nobody, like to your point, nobody has stood out. Somebody has stood out every week, but the same team hasn't done it on a consistent basis. It's just not happened.
Which maybe that's a good thing for college football. I mean, that's what we've kind of all, even within the SEC, we've been tired of Alabama Georgia matchup every year, even though they clearly are the best teams on the field. It's the more parity, the better for everyone. I'm hoping that this 12 team brings it, but I also don't want adding more teams to just be a bunch of blowouts and you get the matchup you were going to get anyways.
Right.
And it's a lot of injury concerns. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah, I do think Tennessee's case. This is a much bigger must win for Tennessee than it is Florida.
Oh, it's not even close, buddy.
Not
like
even in the same universe.
I'm one of the most grounded Tennessee fans you're ever going to come across. I'll tell you right now, we lose, we suck. No, I'm just kidding. No. But if we lose, we're in trouble. I will openly admit that if we lose this game,
lose, it'll be Arkansas beating you twice.
Yes,
that type of phrase. Because what I'm anxious to see now is, and I don't know if I can point back to in Heupel's career where there's been a situation like this where Tennessee lost a game they should have won big even, and now they have a chance to beat a rival that they should beat big. How do they respawn and how do they rebound from that? If it's if they come out there and they look at the strongest they have all season, go out there, win, that game's over by the third quarter, by the fourth quarter, then it's time to start putting Heupel up there in the upper echelon of SEC coaches.
I said it earlier this week, again, in our group chat, shout out to the boys. But I said it earlier this week, and I'll stand by it. We will find out more about Tennessee this week, this Saturday, than what we did in Fayetteville last weekend.
Yeah, because it's all about how you rebound. Because look at Alabama. What made Saban so special? I promise you, I'd put every dollar I have on it that he would not have lost that game against Vandy, because he was the expert. He was and Kirby's his disciple for it. He's the expert of not letting a big win, even more than a loss, of letting a big win trip you up the next week. So they had a huge win. They beat Georgia. That was big. And this new coaching staff couldn't keep that team grounded enough. They didn't take an opponent serious. Like Nick Saban all week, he would have been blowing up Vandy as the best team in the world.
Rat poison.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. And he would not. I'm telling you, I don't care. The same things could have happened in that game, but he would have figured out a way to win it. So
I'll say this.
That's the difference.
To your point, if Nick Saban's coaching that Alabama team Saturday, Alabama wins that game 52-0, and I guarantee you, he would have preached it like it was 52-51 going into the fourth quarter. I guarantee it.
You're right.
That's the difference between what they had and what they have, because that don't happen.
Because the roster would not be any different if Saban was there, and it's top 2 most talented roster in the country.
Yes, absolutely. It
top
sure
2.
is. It sure is. So let's get into the game just a little bit. We've had some rhetoric here, but let's get into our game just a little bit. I'm gonna throw some Vols offense at you. You hit me with the defense here. We average 46 a game, 252 passing, 269 rushing. But we get 8.9 per attempt throwing the ball, and 7 rushing. We've also had 17 rushing touchdowns on the year to 9 passing, 3 picks, 3. So that tells me Nico's, he's, on it. But
he's smart with the ball.
He is. I feel like that number's quite a bit, is skewed quite a bit, though, because of the level of competition we played outside of Oklahoma and Arkansas. So, But I do feel like if you watch the games, either it's just a total miss or it's just like catastrophic.
Right.
NC State, for example, that ball got tipped up. Dude took it to the house the other way for like 90 yards. So, it is what it is. I will say, though, if your defensive line is halfway decent, Oklahoma, Arkansas, both those games proved it, man. 10 sacks, 45 yards lost.
Wow.
Nico is not safe with the ball in the pocket. I don't care. I'm sure I'll get roasted. It is what it is. He's not. He fumbled the ball 3 times against Oklahoma in the pocket. If you guys can get him in the pocket, keep him in the pocket and get them hands going, it's on. Because we've had 10 sacks. We've lost 45 yards on those 10 sacks. So that's 4.5 yards per sack. You put us behind the chains so far this season, depending on, where we've been at, whether it's been in Norman or Fayetteville, the play calling gets kind of, I don't know if we can do this, which doesn't make sense to me, but it is what it is. And y'all put us behind the chains, you're in good shape. Chances are you're getting another possession.
Yeah. Well, hearing all that, and I will say, I don't feel like our defensive line I got to see the end of the Arkansas-Tennessee game, but especially Oklahoma, we're not there. And then we don't have the defensive line we normally have at Florida. It's not bad, but it's not there. So, I'm sure we have some plans. I mean, we'll have some blitz schemes, some exotic blitzes. That's part of our defense with linebackers. But the scariest stat that you just put out there was that balance. 247 to 206 rushing, passing, averaging that much passing average. That is scary because our last 2 wins, Mississippi State, we keyed in on the pass. Now we gave up a lot more rushing yards than they normally get, but we keyed in on their pass, which was their strength, stopped it, and we won that game. UCF, they can only run, right? So we came out, we stuffed the run, and then we also stopped the pass at the same time. But how do you stop an offense that is so good at both? And if you guys come out, this is not going to be UCF's offensive line this week. This is going to be Tennessee's offensive line. It's bigger, badder, stronger across the board. If your running game if you're getting 5 or 6 yards every carry, if you're getting to second and short, whether it's off a run or a safe pass, which I think we'll see a lot of safe play action pass and short passing game early on, soften up the defense and then expose that later on. That's going to be a long day for Florida's defense, for our defense. I mean, that's the scary. When you see a team that puts up that many yards on both ends, that's probably the scariest type of team because if you stack the box to stop the run, Nico will make you pay for that. Now I'll say, I don't know what the status is of your wide receivers. If Brew McCoy, Squirrel White, those are the 2 injuries, right? If they're out, that I obviously feel a lot better about stopping the passing game. We have one elite corner, Jason Marshall, who's probably locked himself in as a top first round draft pick. He's one of the top rated PFF quarterbacks in the country this year. He's done fantastic, and there's been some other good corners there, but he can lock down whatever team's best wide receiver, and he's just gotten better as the season goes on. But, if we can't stop the run, it doesn't matter. And we can't sell out on the run because then we'll get bit by the pass, and then we'll be stuck in limbo. What do you stop here? And then everything.
Right. No, I get you. It's one of those things, man. It's like, this is what I've heard. I'm not hitting the rumor mill, none of that with this, but I've heard Squirrel and Brew are both probably going to be out for this week. Squirrel, most Tennessee wide receiver name ever, has a broken collarbone. Hype said wait for the injury report on Wednesday. So it's like, okay, well, it's Wednesday. I'm gonna look at it later, but I feel like it's one of those deals. We're at the point in the year where if you can play, whether you're hurt or not, you play. Like, just come on out, But if those two in particular don't play, it's time for some youngins to step up. So,
and we know there's talent out there.
Yeah, we've got some youngins behind them that can play ball. Caleb Webb, Leacock, best name one of the best names in college football. Chaz Dimrod, put him out there,
And I'll say reversely, I think Florida should be getting back their best wide receiver, our best wide receiver. We've not had him since the Texas A&M game, and Eugene Wilson should be back healthy this week as well as Mazzell. So that's, you go back, it kind of seems like that's how the Florida-Tennessee rivalry goes. It's like, we get these players back right on time, right for Tennessee. But we'll see what happens with that. But we've been able to win 2 games in a row now without Eugene Wilson. And Mazzell had a fantastic game against Mississippi State. He's probably our fastest receiver. So we'll see how much of an impact that makes. But again, the offensive line has to give Mertz time to throw. or lag wait time to throw, and we've got to have some semblance of a run game so that we can have some open pass options.
No, absolutely. And I'll say this. I feel like if there's one spot either side of the ball where we could afford to have a couple of, I don't want to say big time injuries, but a couple of injuries, wide receivers, one of them. We got Brazil, we've got Caleb Webb, we've got Leacock, we've got, we got some young guys, whatever, but wide receiver, I feel like, is one of those spots where you can plug and play and not have to worry about it necessarily because they're not getting the ball every time. But,
and those two guys specifically, Squirrel White is he's going to take the top off the defense a couple times a game. Drew McCoy, now that might be the bigger loss because he's that big body, almost built like a
possession
tight end.
guy.
Yeah, right. He's going to catch the third down conversion. Who is Nico and Tennessee going to go to now that he's out? So that's an interesting storyline. I think that makes us feel a little better as a defense. But at the end of the day, the wide receivers are talented enough. If we can't stop the run, they're going to be open.
Thornton, first year. Well, he was here last year. That was his first year here. But Thornton's finally healthy. That's important because dude is a burner. I mean, I know you watched that game just like I did, the Oklahoma game. Dude can run away from a secondary and not like, the Gumps ain't got nothing on him. Dude can run like the wind blows.
Right. Well, this would be a good chance for him to show that.
I hope he does. Tennessee, though, 38 for 79 on third down. They convert on third down to the 48% clip, which is pretty solid. Not you want it to be over 50,
that's
but
above the average, I believe.
Yeah, just barely, just by Dart and Curley. Fourth down is 5 for 8, which fourth down that number gets kind of skewed because it's a 9 times out of 10 fourth down you're going for it. It's either it's very situational. You're playing, fourth down 1, fourth down 2,
you're at 35,
something like that.
Or you're at the goal line.
Yes, that's very situational. So I don't put a lot into that, but the third down conversion rate's pretty solid. So what have you got as far as the Florida defense?
Yeah, Florida defense, feel a lot better about this. It's been a dark spot this year. Up until the last game, really started to feel a little better about them and saw a lot of younger guys out there for Florida's defense, which I think was a nice thing because they brought a little more energy, a little more excitement, and you could see the talent on the field. So, outside of Jason Marshall, there's not really been and Shamar James, I would say, our middle linebacker, and number 10, Howard, a transfer from South Carolina. Those have probably been our three best players, as well as Tyreek Sapp on the defensive line. But it doesn't feel like we have that traditional Florida defense that we've had for years, even under lackluster coaching like Muschamp and McElwain and even some of Mullen's years. We seem to have those guys, those dudes on the defensive line and linebacker, and Castell as well at safety is very good. So I feel better about it, but I still worry about our weakness against the run. Even though we did stop it against UCF, it's easy to stop when that's all the team does. And I think we also got to see Colorado set the blueprint for how to do that the week before. So I'm sure that our staff stole some of those plays and schemes and used that. But how do you stop a team that's so well balanced? You got to force Nico into making bad throws, bad decisions, get some turnovers. Like you said, keep them in the pocket, maybe get them to fumble. But if that running game gets going, that two-headed running back monster that you guys have, and you're getting 5-6 yards every play, you're picking up first downs, you're extending drives because of the run game, and even if you're ending in field goals, which our defense is very prone to the bend but don't break philosophy, that'll end up taking a toll on our defense. So I see our defense really wearing down by the third or fourth quarter, and unfortunately probably will be what causes us to lose the game.
It's a depth thing for you guys. I don't feel like it's a talent thing necessarily.
Right.
It's a depth thing for y'all.
We've got talent, right? But you're right. As soon as a defensive lineman gets banged up or needs a breather, you're not plugging someone in that's at the same levels. Can't afford any injuries early. At big 21, big 400-pounder, Desmond Watson. He's
love
good for a
watching
few
that
plays,
guy, though,
and he's got to go
he moves like a damn gazelle.
We can't
He
afford,
moves like a
every
damn
game it seems
gazelle.
like you have, if you have that early injury to a key defensive player, it kills you, and then or a targeting,
Yeah, it's just one of those games, though, man. You could sit here and you could guarantee me a win right now, and I'd be like, I think you're full of shit. But this is one of those things.
Well, I mean, for the longest time,
I'm gonna touch on the
this
Vols
game
defense.
was,
Go ahead.
predicated on the team. I think I might be.
You're good.
Oh, I'm good. The team that runs the ball, the team that rushes the ball the best, wins the game. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen this Saturday. I think, regardless of what we do in the passing game, I still think we have to outrush you guys somehow to beat you.
Yeah. And I'm gonna say this to your point. Arkansas didn't outrush us, but as far as the overall number goes, if you guys can't, let me start over with this. Arkansas had the perfect offensive game plan. They didn't beat us with defense. They did not beat Tennessee with a defensive game plan. Breaking down that game, I looked at it. They averaged right at like 3.2 yards a carry. That's what you want to do to beat this team. You keep the ball out of Nico's hands. You keep the ball out of our hands on offense. That's how you beat Tennessee. I don't care what anybody says. Time of possession in that game spoke volumes because it wasn't, to the casual football fan, you're looking at it and you're like, okay, Tennessee done what they usually do. They only held the ball for 24 minutes, whatever. Yeah, usually we're holding the ball for 24 minutes, but we're scoring 50 points a game. That's not what happened in Fayetteville last week. We held the ball for 24 minutes. We ended up with 14 points. Arkansas held the ball for 32 minutes or 30 minutes right at it, or 30. You know where I'm going with this. Held the ball long enough for their offense to keep it away from us and score 19 points. They ended up winning 19-14 because they were able to run the ball fairly good enough to keep the ball out of Nico's hands and put all the pressure on the Tennessee offense. If you guys can do that somehow, some way, you will beat Tennessee in Neyland. I will not even back away from that. You will do it. That's just the way it is.
But that's easier said than done.
Oh, absolutely. Especially up here. I mean,
yeah,
there's no denying it. Tennessee is a different team inside Neyland Stadium. I could see there is a world where I could see Tennessee covering that 15.5 point spread. There's a world where I could see Tennessee
absolutely.
doubling it.
Yeah.
Doubling that spread.
Absolutely.
And that's not me talking shit or trash, whatever. That's just me saying, hey, I know that Tennessee's capable of doing it because it's at home. If this was a game in the swamp, dude, I'll tell you right now, you've got this, and I'm not, whether we got the better team or not. And if Tennessee ended up winning that game, I'd be like, oh, that's awesome. But I don't feel like we're at that point because it's in Neyland. That being said, though, we're running tight here, so we'll wrap this up kind of quick. But Tennessee gives up 9.5 points a game, 68 rushing yards per game, 9 passing, for a total of 277 total offense per game. So that tells me if the defense will at least come to play, act like they've got a pulse, unlike that Arkansas game, Tennessee's got a pretty good shot at it. It sounds like we could just go out there and almost lay an egg on offense. Not do it. I'm not encouraging it. Don't get me wrong. I'd like to beat you guys by about 40 because we owe you a couple at least. That'd make me feel a little bit better. I don't expect it. I'm not saying that, but that tells me Tennessee's offense is capable of doing it. Offensively, we only give up 22% on third down. That's pretty damn solid. Fourth down, again, the number's a little skewed. It's 25%. I don't want to say that was skewed though, because more times than not this year, the Tennessee defense has been in fourth and long, and they're giving us the ball back.
Right.
I think Arkansas helped that number just a little bit. Here, though, is the thing on defense. We've caused 14 fumbles this year. and recovered 5. So that tells me we're out there ripping at the ball. And if we can do that, get a couple turnovers, then we're good. So,
yeah, I mean, hearing those stats, it just shows how elite that Tennessee defense is. And, and we're marching in an offense there that is not elite by any means, unfortunately. So I don't know what the secret recipe is there, because that some of our weaknesses seem to be your strengths, which is, is stopping the run, causing turnovers. I'll say we haven't had a lot of turnovers outside of the Miami game this year. I don't anticipate that being a problem, but you guys are good at causing them for a reason. A lot of teams go in without expecting to turn the ball over, but you create those. That's really one of those things. I almost feel like Florida has to play a flawless game, no turnovers, low penalties. You got to convert over 50% of your third downs, and that's not something we've been good at this year. It's a really tall task. I mean, we could go in there and play our best game and still lose. I mean, you guys wouldn't even have to play your absolute best game either. But if you play your absolute best game, it could get ugly. But we've got to, the blueprint from last year, and I know Tennessee's it knows about it, obviously, but all the motion. What did we do that first half of that game last year? Motion. So much motion, and that's really a key to scoring or moving the ball against elite defense, is because you're trying to distract them. The ball's going here. Where's the ball going? Here's a player in motion. It's really, it's the NFL model. So I think we'll see a lot of motion. You'll see a lot of reverses, maybe it's double reverse or twos, and trying to get Eugene Wilson into space. Tank Hawkins, who's a fast freshman we have, and that's what I'm hoping to see. I'll say that. I don't want to feel like we're watching another boring one-page playbook like the Miami and Texas A&M game that had no creativity, no explosion, no splash plays, nothing like that. I'm hoping that we continue to expand the playbook and be creative with it this week, because we're going to need it.
Well, here's one thing I will say, and you can, I'm sure, take solace in this. It doesn't matter how bad you guys are. It doesn't matter how good we are. You guys always seem to play your best game against Tennessee. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You guys
the history, right? The history proves it.
You guys could come into this game just defeated over on the season. It don't matter. You and I could go to this game, check out at a gas station somewhere, and it'd be 6-6-7, and that's all that matters. I mean, that's the way it is. You guys find a way to win. And
now, what do you think about how late the game is this year? It's much later than usual, is it not?
It is. It's usually the 3:30 game. And especially when
later
it's up
here. Later in our schedule. Later in our schedule.
I see. Yeah. Okay, my apologies.
Because we're usually playing the third or fourth game of the season, typically.
Well, this game's usually called the third Saturday in September, as opposed to the next game we've got, which is the third Saturday in October. But, man, it's one of those deals where I just kind of feel like it don't matter where this game falls on the schedule. The chips usually fall your way in one way or another. You know what I mean? You kind of mentioned it earlier, saying, you get this guy back, that guy back. And we're sitting here, we played Arkansas, and we're missing what should be our 2 top wide receivers. And it's one of those things, man. I don't know. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens on Saturday, though. Let's see here. All right, man. What do you say we close this one out with some pick'ems and some final thoughts, and we'll go from there. So
that works.
First game up, those big bloated redheaded cocks of South Carolina.
I heard
go
you
to
almost got in a fight
Tuscaloosa
with the South Carolina frat boy one year.
Oh man, I'm still convinced he stole those shorts from his girlfriend. Shoot. Going to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, coming off that anchoring down by Vandy. 21-point favorites.
Yeah,
Who have you got?
I got Bama, and I got them covering. I think they're going to be angry. If they don't, I really would start to worry about that program overall. But I think they're going to be angry. South Carolina does have a good defense. They might keep it close for a while, but I do think I see Alabama pulling away in the end. I'll say a final score of 49 to 20, 49-20.
Okay. All right. I'm going to agree with you on that just simply because it's in Tuscaloosa. I think so far this year, I mean, they've took one trip outside of Alabama, and well, they did go to Wisconsin. They put one on with Wisconsin, but Wisconsin sucks. They're 1-1 on the road so far this year, and the one team that they shouldn't have lost to, they lost to. I think this is one of those weekends where you're like, okay, if you're a Bama fan, which thank God neither of us are, this is one of those weekends where you're like, well, we're going to see what we got. And I think you find out what you got, but you find out what you got at home, and that's a different ball game on the road.
Yeah.
So either way, home in Tuscaloosa, Cousinville, whatever.
Yeah. They'll roll.
You're winning that game.
Yeah,
you're winning that game. But this weekend, they roll. Next up, Red River Shootout, buddy. Red River Rivalry, whatever it is they call it down there. Texas favored by 14.5 over Oklahoma. Who you got?
It's going to be cool to see how being in the SEC if it changes anything with that game, but I'm guessing not. That has too much of a history. So hopefully it feels the same as it always has. I know Oklahoma upset them last year, so Texas has had this game circled. I'm sure. I do have Texas winning, but I don't have them. I do have Oklahoma covering the spread, so I think it'll be a low-scoring, ugly defensive game. Texas is going to have some turnovers that are going to keep Oklahoma in it, in my opinion. Oklahoma's defense is going to keep them in it. But Texas pulls away in the end. I'll say 23-19.
Ooh, so you got Oklahoma covering, but Texas winning. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. You know what? Just because I love my Okie fans on here after that Oklahoma preview that I done, I'm going to take Texas, and I'm going to take them big. Just kidding. Give me Oklahoma to cover, but I'm with you on that. I think Texas wins. I do. Just because Oklahoma is down so many of their top offensive weapons. I mean, it's hard to win a game like that.
And they don't have an answer at quarterback, and Texas has two, so.
They do.
Yeah.
And one of them is our namesake.
Yeah.
Just kidding. They can have him. I'll take Nico. All right, so next up, I'm going to piss somebody off in that one way or the other. I don't even care.
Guaranteed.
Next up, the Buckeyes of Ohio State, 3.5-point favorites going to the Autzen Zoo. I'm going to go ahead and jump on this one. Give me the Ducks.
Yeah, you get that one first. Ducks outright. Wow.
Outright. Yes, sir. Next up, we got Penn State traveling to the Trojans.
Well, you want to get my pick on that?
Sorry, my bad. I thought you gave it to me. My bad. Go ahead, give it to me.
I mean, that's obviously the most exciting non-SEC game this weekend. It's the first Big Ten matchup between those two. Oregon does get crazy over there. I think they've got an elite coach. Ohio State seems to be legit, but they haven't really played anybody yet. So I would go Oregon +4. I mean, just barely covering it, 24-20. Another I think a low-scoring game.
It's got that written all over it, don't it? Because
it does.
You and me growing up, it was Oregon scoring 75 bazillion and giving up 72 bazillion. Now it's like
the Chip Kelly days.
Yeah, now it's like, okay, Oregon's got a defense, so I'm torn on that one.
I think they would love for that game to be low scoring and sloppy. I guarantee you, Dan Lanning would love that.
And the craziest shit about it is, man, that's a conference game now.
It is. It's the weirdest thing. Just even saying that, because there's like 2,000 miles between them.
Like, what a time to be alive,
Right. It's crazy.
So, okay. So, my bad on skipping you on that one.
Oh, it's all good.
Next up, though, Penn State at USC. Penn State is a 4.5-point favorite.
But that is, you want to talk about, that's a tough one, because USC is reeling, right?
Yep.
They just lost to Minnesota. Not a good loss. I mean,
No,
not the Minnesota's not bad, but but at the same time, and Penn State's undefeated, but it's James Franklin, and it just seems like this is the type of game that James Franklin loses, right?
It
So,
is.
what'd you
It
say?
is.
Penn State's favored 4.5.
4.5. 4.5.
I am going USC winning that game by 3.
Not so fast, my friend.
Not so fast. I'm going to pull the lead course up 38-35. I think James Franklin pulls a James Franklin and goes in there and poops the bed, and USC gets the win.
You know what? I'm going with you. I'm riding with you on that one. I like that one.
It makes too much sense when you say it like that.
It does, don't it? Trojans. Next up,
They come.
next up, we've got Arizona traveling to the Stormin' Mormons of BYU. BYU is favored by 4.5.
I mean, I haven't watched either team for a split second all season. I think Arizona's doing better than people think. When our fans were putting together a short list of who we'd get if Napier was fired, I think their coach popped up on there. So they must be doing something. And I guess BYU is too. But, man, I guess you got to go with the home team there, even though I really don't know much about either one. But I got BYU winning and covering in that game just because they are at home and they have a pretty good atmosphere there at home. And there's some Mormon juju behind their play as well.
Sure. I've seen it. Provo. It's wild. We've lost to them before in Neyland, nonetheless.
Yes.
Thanks, Coach
that.
Cornbread. That being said, I've also seen the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives,
Wow.
and I'm going with the Bearcats. Give me Arizona. Give me Arizona. Next up on the docket, I mean this is probably a gimme for both of us, but we are picking against the spread for games like this right here. Miss State goes to Athens. It's a 33.5 point spread, and you'll never guess who's favored.
No, could not imagine. It's the Bulldogs for sure.
Of course, yeah, one way or the other.
All right, the Bulldogs are winning. I guarantee at that game.
Yes, sir.
Gosh, Mississippi State, I know they fought a little bit with Texas. They really are so bad. And that's a big spread though. But I'd have to say that I think Georgia will cover it something like 45-8, some weird number like that. I don't think Mississippi State cracks double digits on that defense. And I think Georgia just runs the ball down their throats, throws it enough, and they run away with it at the end and cover the spread.
You know what? Uncle Luke can suck it. I'm taking the Bulldogs and 33.5, whatever. How can I lose? Just kidding.
Yeah, right.
Man, I don't know. Like, this is one of those games where I feel like Georgia, and this is not a knock on them. They're like us. They're feasting on bad teams right now because they don't know their identity, and because they've lost so much, man. Like, we're just young in important positions. We're not young all over the field, but we're young in important positions.
Yeah,
I do think Georgia probably ends up covering that, kind of to your point, maybe with a late touchdown or so. So I'll run with you. I'll run with you with that. But I'm trying to get Uncle Lou on here just because I think it'll be fun.
That would be fun.
That would be if you don't have a DUI. Anywho, that one's going to be a good one. Not going to be a good one, I should say. I'm with you on that. I think they cover it late. They may even pitch a shutout in that one because Mississippi State could not beat their own meat on offense. They suck.
Yeah, they're bad.
I'll roll with you on that one. Could be a 34-38 nothing shutout. That being said, next one on the docket, Ole Miss favored by 3.5, traveling to Death Valley. Which way you running on that one?
That's really tough. I forgot that game was going on this weekend too, man. Is it at night?
I didn't jot down the kickoff time, but I do think it is at night. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Probably. Man, in that place, Florida's got to play them every other year there at night, so I know all about that, and it's pretty magical. And then, Lane Kiffin, what team's going to show up? What Ole Miss team is going to show up? And what LSU team is going to show up? I mean, That's a tough one. You said Ole Miss is favored 3.5. Man, and I think that could be our highest scoring game in the conference.
It should be.
It could.
It should be. I should have put that. Let me look at the over under on that one. Hold on.
Yeah, it's got to be 50
just
plus.
because I'm curious. Just because I'm curious. Honestly, I don't even know if I'd bet that spread. If it went up 2 points one way or the other, I'm probably betting it. But that's let's see here though. No, like I say, spread's 3.5. I can check it. It may have very well changed since I jotted this down earlier. But let's see here.
It's got to be 50 plus. It may even be 60 plus.
Okay, so the spread is still 3.5. LSU and Ryan Kelly and his family is in plus money. Over under is 62.5.
So that makes I'm gonna go Ole Miss. I'm gonna because they rebounded well against South Carolina last week and went to South Carolina, so they're going on the road again. I think they have a better quarterback, they have better skill players, and they have enough on defense that they can slow LSU down. And final score something like, and this might be our overtime game, but I'm gonna say that they win and they cover 52-45.
Ooh, I like that one. I hope it's that good.
Yeah,
I hope it's that
good. Exactly.
I'm gonna say this is gonna sound crazy, but I'm not taking LSU. I'm gonna take Ole Miss just because you know yourself. I love Lane. I do. I don't care what.
Yeah. I
just don't. I don't care.
I want him in Florida right away.
I do not. I'm gonna say though, Ole Miss or LSU covers this one. It's a field goal game one way or the other, but I'm gonna say Ole Miss wins this one 38-35.
That's a good one. That's a good.
In overtime.
I think we're both. That's
second year
game.
notion.
That's probably the game of the weekend.
It would have to be almost that. It would have to be between that or Ohio State and Oregon. I mean,
you said at least within the SEC, that's got to be the game where you're thinking, man, this is going to be fun to watch from start to finish for sure.
Yes. All right. Last but not least, your Gators, my Vols, 15.5 point spread. Which way you going?
Well, I gotta try to be realistic here. I've got to try to stay grounded. Understand all that we've talked about. Talent favors Tennessee, probably more so than we've seen in a while. The experience and positions outside of quarterback favors Tennessee as well. I do think that, I think having Mertz is good for us because he's played some tough games on the road. So this won't be too big of an environment for him. We'll see what DJ does, but regardless, I think just the talent's too much, the night game atmosphere and the rowdy fans, the stadium. I think at the end of the day, Florida does cover, and is my homer pick. So I'm going to say that Florida covers. It's one of those. I feel like we see maybe a 14-14 halftime game. Tennessee probably gets the ball in the third quarter. They go down a score, and then it kind of gets out of hand from there. So I think final score, I'm going to go 34-20 Tennessee.
That's realistic. I would agree with that. That being said, though, this is the Vols podcast. Vols by 50. I'm just kidding. No, I agree with you. I do think Tennessee wins. If you would have caught me this time last week, before Tennessee goes to Fayetteville, lays an egg, I'd say we cover that 20.5. I would. I mean, that's the kind of optimism I had. My confidence level has been kind of pretty much cut in half. I do think Tennessee can cover that, but I don't think we do. I think Hype knows that we've got a good defense. The offense is just good enough to win a lot of games. They were honestly just good enough to win last week. But he's got to put them in position to do so. I think he does so at home. I'm gonna say it's a little bit tighter than what Vol fans want it to be. I'm gonna say 34-28. You said what? 38, 34, 38, 30.
34-20.
You said 34-20. I'm gonna say I don't know that you guys get that much on us though. It's possible, depending on how the game's going, this, that, and the other. I don't know. We don't cover. I think like I say, I'll say 38-30, just because it's a rivalry game. 38-30. I don't know that the defense will keep you guys out of the end zone as much as people want to say we will. I think Arkansas kind of put that one to rest because theoretically you guys should have more talent on your offense than Arkansas does. That's the way I
think
look at it.
we do offensively. I do. I really
do
think
too.
we do.
I do too. Plus, if you guys have got a big physical wide receiver, Arkansas offensively laid out the game plan to move the ball on Tennessee. They did. I don't care what anybody says, they did. If you guys have got that one wide receiver that you can rely on, if you got two, you're shitting an eye cotton. If you've got one, you're good. I'm going to say 38-30 Tennessee, and may the best man win, buddy.
Absolutely, man. Well, I will tell you, I'm excited for Tennessee and the fans here, and me living here now for 20 plus years. It feels like you got the right coach and the right staff in place, and we're going through coaching turmoils now at Florida, and you want national championships, you want all this, you want another Nick Saban or Kirby Smart, but at the end of the day, to have a good coach that's a good guy and turns out good winning seasons, if you can get a special season every 1 out of 5 or so, and I think that's the peak enjoyment as a fan. As I get older, I start to realize that I want to just feel confident every season that this is going to be a team that can at least compete with everyone, and maybe it's a special team that goes all the way, but if it doesn't, we got a good coach that keeps everything together, gets good players here, like embrace it and keep them there, because it seems to be harder to find that than ever. So the coaching turnover is unbelievable, and we're in an era where coaches get paid millions of dollars for failing, and
yeah.
It's like, I don't know how I'd be motivated if I could fail and walk away with $20+ million, or stay and maybe make that and plus 10 over 4 years, succeeding.
Sure.
But so I am happy for Tennessee and fans, all you being one of my best friends and everybody around here, because I know what you've been through, and I'm just hoping for a good competitive rivalry feeling game. I don't want to feel like the game's over at halftime. I know Tennessee fans would love it, but I just hope to have that type of game that keeps me in it, keeps me excited. I'm going to have good food and drinks flowing, so I don't want to be going to bed early.
Right. No, I'm with you, man, and I appreciate that for sure. You kind of seen just there's been years where I'm like, man, I would kill to be 6-6 this year, and now we're kind of in that point to where we're like, well, 6-6 just sucks.
Yeah, it's a good place to be.
It is, and luckily I'm old enough just to kind of remember when tennis, the back end of Phil, and when we were pretty good, and it makes you appreciate those lean years quite a bit more. I'm hoping I'm kind of, to your point, you may not want to go to bed early Saturday night. I hope you do, but I'm also of the thought process of I'd be okay with 2022 type of game, 2022 Alabama game. I'd be okay with that. I don't care.
Walk it off, whatever.
Just get out of there with a win. That being said, man, I'm gonna give you an opportunity to give me that damn Gator chomp, and I'm gonna end it with Go Vols, and we'll call it a night, man.
All right, man. I'll give it to you. I'm tired, and the 2 straight losing seasons, and maybe heading to another one. It doesn't have as much luster as it used to, but go Gators, baby. Let's see what happens this weekend, and I hope it's a good, fun, enjoyable game.
Absolutely, man. I'll give you that one, and I'm gonna say go damn Vols, and I'm gonna hit stop, and we'll get this up as soon as we can.
Sarah, good luck, bro.